New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Welcome to Ministers Talking a weekly program where Rev BRZ and Rev Z and their guests chat about current affairs, world events, spiritual principles, and any old they want to talk about. Based on the New Thought philosophy and ancient wisdoms, Ministers Talking shares a visionary perspective of the evolving spiral called spiritual living. Join us each week as we explore the emerging paradigm of life on planet Earth and beyond.
And hello again, dear ones. Rev BRZ with you over here.
Rev Z right here.
And we're a couple of ministers talking shit. It's Friday morning on the Mountain Time Zone. It's Friday morning on whatever time zone you're on, but we're on the Mountain Time Zone. It's 7 a.m. time for our get together. All right, let's just restart, Glad you're with us, folks. Feel free to join us in the comment box, chat along as we explore some of the top stories of the day. And Z, in our prep this morning, you woke me up to a story I didn't even know was going on, and it's the kind of story I love to feature. I might have to feature it on tonight's episode of The Good News. Why don't you kick us off and share with everybody what's going on?
Yes. So we had history made. The space station the International Space Station has 6 new members, one of them being the first Black female to spend a long length of time, named Jessica Watkins, and I was surprised to know she's has the same birthday with my daughter. So she shares a birthday with my daughter in May, and she has Colorado ties. Her parents live in Lafayette, and she seems like a very interesting person. I'm just beginning to dig into her bio, if you will. Stanford grad, undergrad, and PhD from UCLA. She was a rugby player. So here's someone who is pretty adept at being physical and mental, if you will, which brings together this real serious presentation of how we live in this life and how we get around. So kudos to her. And they had a little meeting with the Russians up there, and all that went well, given all the other stuff. So, hey, kudos.
At least in space, we can act like we're all one, right? At least that's the nice part. In space, we can still believe we can act like we're all one. We believe it down here. But I wanted to say a big shout out to Jessica Watkins too. And I'll tell you, here's a little bit of my personal white privilege, folks, is I was surprised because I thought this would have happened long ago. There have been women on the space station all along. It never occurred to me that we hadn't yet sent a woman of color up there. So congratulations, Jessica. I know you'll probably never see this broadcast, but that's okay. Maybe she's listening in from
And we're going to give a shout out to her high school, Fairville High School over in Boulder. So I'm sure there are a bunch of excited. I think they're the Mustangs, Fairfield Mustangs. My son's school played them in football. So hey, congrats to all y'all over there who are cheering her on, I'm sure.
And this may not be the only time we hear Jessica's name, not just because of she's going to spend 6 months on the space station. She's also part of NASA's Artemis program, and the Artemis project is to return to the moon. Yes. So while the next crew to go to the moon has not been announced or any of that stuff, she would be in the running. So it's a very possibility that we could see her going to the moon at some point as well. Hey, let's do a quick shout out. Good morning, Linda. Good to see you, dear one. Glad you're with us. Brother Wayne. It's always a gift when you're present. We think the same way. We love seeing you here with us. Thanks for being with us. Anyone else that's out there, if you're watching and you want to chat along, please do drop your name, comment, or a suggestion in the comment box. We'll say hello to you. And if you have an idea, folks, of something you'd like us to talk about, or maybe somebody you'd like us to talk to, please send us an email, ministertalk@ntmedia.org. That's ministertalk@ntmedia.org. We'd love to learn more about what you'd like to see us talking about here on Friday mornings. Okay. We also had a toss-up today, because there's two really big stories in the news, neither of which have an awful lot of consequence to most of us. Number one, the richest man in the universe went and bought Twitter. If you haven't heard, Elon Musk has purchased Twitter, or is in the process of purchasing Twitter. It still has to go through SEC regulations and approval and all that kind of stuff. One of the ones I love this week, I don't know if this is real. I'm pretty sure this is just a fake meme, but I saw a meme that had his face on it and said, okay, next I'm buying Coca-Cola and going to put the cocaine back in it. and then there was another one that said, next I'm going to buy every airline on the planet and pay the ramp and pay everybody for their whole work day. I guess flight attendants don't make money when the plane is at the gate, I guess. But all in all, this is a huge topic, because there's obviously two very different camps here. Those that are concerned about free speech, and those that seem to think this is the best thing possible for free speech. It's hard to determine because we haven't seen any action from him yet. Z, what's your take on all this?
Well, it's an interesting, scenario, right? Because, one of the first things that came up was, can this dude, can he really manage three huge companies between Tesla, SpaceX, Twitter, and all the other sundry things he has? But those are three major companies in very different ecosystems, if you will. And so that thing came up as, how's he going to do it? And I said that about all the other stuff he did. So I ain't counting him out, but that's definitely going to be a concern. And of course, the big thing is the whole thing with Second Amendment and, people who got banned. There's also been talk about people who were banned previously may be able to come back, and you're going to look at all of that. They're supposed to stop or try to stop some of the bullying and cyber bots and all of that stuff, fake news or whatever. Given what Elon has done already, technically, I think he can probably come up with the people and the money to make that happen. But it'll be an interesting thing. I guess you brought something up earlier this morning about him bringing the founder, Jack Dorsey, back. Tell everybody what you found there about his genie in the bottle.
This is still the speculation game, folks, but there is a theory floating around the internet now that probably the best move for Elon would be to bring back Jack Dorsey. Jack was part of the original team that launched Twitter. He was its first CEO, and then took a few years off, came back for a second term as CEO. Now, so originally from 2006 to 2008, and then again from 2015 to 2021, he is also the owner of a company called Block, now called Block, used to be called Square. So it's the payment processing company Square. And so Jack's no stranger to all of this. There's no word yet from his side whether he would take the job if offered again or not. The one thing as you were saying, It's yet to be seen if Elon can do this. However, it would appear that some of his Tesla investors don't believe it. Tesla dropped 12% yesterday on the stock exchange, lost a value of over 126 billion million or billion. What was it? Let me make sure. Losses of $126 billion yesterday in active trading. So the investor world seems to think he can't do this, or there's just a lot of people that don't believe it's the right thing and are trying to get out of Tesla because of what he's doing.
Right. You know, because this whole thing, one of the speculations, obviously, is the Twitter in chief, as they sometimes used to call him. Will he be allowed to come back and spread venom, as some people say? So that's going to be key. And you know, now in this environment where, you know, everything is crazy in the economic and stock market world, people are beginning, and these are big players. Now, remember, I mean, we're looking at the price of these stocks. Twitter stock, you know, I don't have any. So these guys who are making these stock pools are, you know, potentially are trying to make a statement about the direction or give some, you know, guidance with their dollars on where he should go with this.
Right. So, you know, folks, what ultimately I have to believe that free speech wins out. That this isn't about censorship. This isn't, and I really do believe the market will balance, and not just the market. Let's make it not about the market. The flow of humanity balances itself out. Yeah. The universe has a great way of course correcting when something goes awry and when something doesn't turn out quite the way it's meant to, I guess. Well, I'm not going to get into predestiny either today, but ultimately, he who shall not be named has said, no, he wouldn't come back, which is okay. If Elon can go in and clean up the bullion and clean up some of the persistent invasive marketing and advertising that some of these platforms have devolved into, I think it's got to be a win for free speech.
Yeah. Well, and here's the other thing that came out the other day that I thought was so interesting, right? Is this whole conversation about if Twitter can make if Elon can go in there and do the tweaks, what's going to happen to that platform that the president created to do his own tweets? That, from what I understand, is not doing so well. And I don't know how much money he dashed into it, but you know, there's also that thing where he had other ventures where if they didn't want it, he walked away and didn't pay people. So it'll be interesting to see the outcome of that. And just speaking of tweets, just while we're talking about tweets, I mean, and Twitter, for those who aren't familiar, there's been a lot of tweets going on about the NFL draft that started yesterday too. The airways have been burning up. And for all you sports fans, and so I just want to put my tweet on this new Twitter thing here called the internet. that the Denver Broncos has 9 picks this year, so they're looking to get some help for Russell Wilson and try to make a run for that Super Bowl. So it'll be exciting to see what falls out. Now back to the Twitter space.
Yeah, we'll keep you informed on the highs and the lows of the Broncos season throughout the year here. So, okay, let's get back into the news a little bit. Our top story, and this one's really important, and this is another one got right past me. I didn't see it, and I'm a little bummed out that people aren't making a bigger deal about this. Because this has huge ramifications, not just for Harvard, but for colleges across the entire Ivy League. And I'm going to say it now, businesses and organizations across all of America, of the United States. A real precedent has been set. Z, fill us in a little bit.
Yeah, so the other day, Harvard made this announcement. They released this report of how, and a detailed report, I mind you, of their involvement in the U.S. slave trade, which include faculty members and staff who owned slaves and professors who was teaching racial eugenics, which is this whole thing about blacks were genetically inferior and so forth. And, you know, they had staff had like 70 to 79 slaves. I think the official number is 70, but they've also said something like 79, some kind of tangential way. And it's huge because you look at these elite schools, and just to let you know, in terms of elite schools, Brown University was involved some kind of way, Columbia University, Dartmouth, Georgetown, John Hopkins, UPenn, Princeton, Yale. All of these schools were involved in slavery and the slave trade. And so, you know, you wonder, why don't you guys have set up the most elite schools in the country, in the world, in fact, that built that whole legacy off the backs of African-American people. So, I mean, there is there's a lot to fall out. And so if somebody starts talking about reparations, then it's like, but look at the reparation, these schools have billions of dollars in endowments.
Right. So and part of what I haven't had a chance to read the whole study, folks. We've left a link in the comments for you to take a deeper look at this and read it for yourself. And I do intend to read this entire thing sometime over the weekend. The part of what's happening here is that not only were there people that owned slaves on Harvard, on the campus during its early years, but during the first half of the 19th century, there were about 5 guys that financially supported the institution, and they were all profiting from slave labor.
Yeah.
It's really hard to deny that the entire school, the buildings, the infrastructure was built on the profits of slave labor. And so Harvard is committing $100 million to a reparations program. Now, I know here in the reparations is the word we're not supposed to say, right? Nobody's allowed to really talk about reparations because, well, that's a keyword for money. Like it's going to cost me anything. Or it might cost those of you that are going to Harvard in the next few years some money. Your tuition might go up a little bit or a whole lot. But I want to give Harvard some due and some credit here as well. We wouldn't be talking about it if not, because this is the start. And I would anticipate seeing other Ivy League schools and other schools, and as I said at the top of the story, other organizations and companies, a chance to start saying, okay, what do we do? So part of this
when we look at Harvard's endowment, they can afford that because their endowment is, I think at the end of last year, the fiscal year 2021, it was $52.3 billion endowment for Harvard. Right. So they got a little money to go around. They could give 200 million and still have 53 billion left.
Yeah, that's true. In one of the statements, they indicated that they're doing the genealogy work to actually identify the descendants of the people that were enslaved on and are looking to make reparations. Again, it's not all financial. Reparations isn't just a check.
Yeah.
To me, it's a state of consciousness. It's a state of saying, and if we break it down, every time I hear reparations, I hear repair. We're repairing the division. We're repairing the wounds, the hurt. We're repairing what was done to a whole culture of people. And while, Harvard is a small piece of the puzzle, every piece of the puzzle is going to have to stand up and do this.
Yeah.
And I think it's time for forensic accounting of our major college institutions to see, well, how much did they really profit? And is their success built more on the backs of slaves than it was on by the hands of white guys with nice shirts and rich educations? It could be a long story. So
Yeah. Well, and you know, one of the other things that's interesting here is, and it comes up often when the conversation of reparation comes up, there's also that point that says, well, we can't do that. But then you know, the Japanese who were internment camps here, they got paid for being, you know, during the war. They were in concentration, and they got some reparations, if you will. Now trying to do reparations for ex-slaves or descendants of slaves, you know, might be a little challenging. But you know, if you can go out and prove it, however you do, I mean, there should be some factor considered. I don't know whether somebody gets a free education or you know, they got all kind of things on the table. But it's an interesting conversation. And as we can, you know, when we look at, here's Harvard teaching racial eugenics, but when critical race theory is trying to be taught, there's an exception to that, right? But this other thing, eugenics, was taught, and who knows, might still be around somewhere. Who knows?
Well, there you go, Z. You said the other thing we're not supposed to say: critical race theory. Right. And, so we're going to get into this because this one just confounds me. Everybody and their grandma, well, all right, not everybody and their grandmother, but there's a real push in this country. I don't think people understand that critical race theory is not something we're teaching in primary school or middle school or even high school. High schoolers only know about it because we're talking about it in the media. And they're smart enough to do a little research and find out what it really is. Critical race theory is something that came out of college campuses, and the ability to not to be critical, but to take a critical look at how race developed, how the concept of race developed in the United States, and how through slavery we perverted any opportunity for people of color to have an equal shot on this continent. And not that it wasn't just the original importation of slaves. It's all the systems and everything that was built beyond that, even after slavery was abolished.
Yeah,
the systems and the things we put and the laws that were put into place to, you know, we'll say it straight up, to keep the black man down. And this has to be part of the solution.
And you know, it's interesting because I know in Georgia, right, when back in the 1770s, when settlers came there, that was all Indian territory. And if you came there, you could settle that land. It was Creek Nation. You could settle the land, and you could get, for the head of household, would get 200 acres. And then you could get another 50 acres per person in your family, including slaves, up to 1,000 acres of land. So now, you know, so maybe that's where the idea of 50 acres or 40 acres, they took 10 back, but should have been 50 acres and a mule came from, right? Because when you were accumulating your land, at least up to 1,000 acres, for every slave you owned, they gave you 50 acres of land, and they just pushed the Native Americans across into that whole Trail of Tears thing. And, you know, I mean, you know, to really get to the bottom of this, we have to take our kid gloves off on all fronts. And dig deep. It's going to be emotional. It's going to be you know, turbulent. But it is through this kind of understanding and discovery of what really took place when we look at disparities for people of color, that we have to do if we want to heal. And I think the majority of people want to heal because it keeps spiraling.
Yeah. You bring up a good part of it, right? Is none of this was was our land to begin with as well, and the great question. Let's get Linda in here. Spirituality, if New Thought focuses on the now, how do we include the now into problems such as this one? Just a philosophical consideration. Thank you, Linda. And I think this is part of what Z's talking to. Is it's kind of like an old sweater, and you pull at one thread, and one thread leads to another thread and another thread. The next thing you know, you don't have a sweater anymore. You got a ball of yarn or a pile of yarn laid around. We're not talking about dismantling everything, but we are talking about taking a deeper dive and a bigger look at how did organizations and systems develop, and what can we do? One of the things we can do is you can go out and buy this book. It's a workbook. It's called Recovery from the Lie of Whiteness. I'm personally in a class right now working on through that workbook, and being able to just take an authentic introspection, not of how I may have perpetuated racism, or not how I may have knowingly or unknowingly contributed to the problems, but also taking a look at what can I do now that I've identified I have a problem. Now that I've identified I, in some small way or in some large way, contributed to the problem, what do I do next? And I think part of it starts with having conversations like this. I also think that part of it is we, as white people in America, as people that are challenged in the color of our skin, we've got to get out and have deeper conversations, be able to listen more, and to get involved with saying, I may have turned a blind eye until now, but today I'm awake, and today I'm going to start talking about it, and I'm going to let my dollars do what work they can do, and have the conversations to say that we're not going to let this continue.
And I thank you, Linda, for that question, because it spawned something in my mind around this whole thing. And as you know, who watch, I like to take it to a science kind of a realm that we can understand. But it's just like the idea, if you have an illness or something going on in your body, and you can't quite describe it, you go to the doctor checks out everything and starts ruling stuff out. Is it the flu? Do you have a cold? Is it cancer? Is it this? Is it that? Until they can get to the core of what's causing the problem, because that problem is affecting all the systems, right? And so once we can locate the problem, then we can start working on that and doing some sundry things for all these other systems that make up the whole right now, as we begin to really try to unravel some of this separation that we've created. And we're seeing it being displayed in Ukraine and Russia right now, just to the nth degree.
Right. Every one of us has to do what we feel it within, what we're internally called to do, to either bring light to what happened, to call for a new way of being, for honoring the repercussions. As we're sitting here, we talked about football, and Colin Kaepernick came to mind, because what Colin did was took a small step within his organization, within his community, to try to honor people of color that have been wrongfully abused at the hands of the police. And this is a direct outpicturing of this entire issue. He was ostracized for it. He was made to be a villain for it. Now, I love the fact that the owner of the Las Vegas Raiders, Mark Davis, Al Davis's son, has recently stated that he would welcome Colin Kaepernick with open arms, and that he deserves a shot to be in the NFL again. that's one of the ways we can. And I'm not a big, huge football fan. And and that's one of the ways we can make a difference is to call Mark Davis and call the sorry, I never know where they are anymore, the Vegas Raiders. Send a letter, let them know you want to see the man on the team. Do something in your local community. There are countless ways to be involved.
And you know, at least give him a shot so that he can stand on his own merits. Give him a shot. If he makes it, he makes it. If he doesn't, he doesn't. Then you move on. But now it seems obvious that there's some discrimination, if you will, going on because nobody will even give him a shot.
Right. Exactly. Because we're not going to get into that side of it either. That's a wormhole we could go down, folks, and we'd be there for weeks. So, yes. As my teenager says, capitalism. Hey, do remember, folks, we do love to hear what you've got to say and what you've got to think as well. Your comments are important to us as well. Thank you, Linda, for getting us kicked off into that direction a little bit. Z, what do you see on the horizon? We're going to take a couple extra. We're going into overtime here, folks. This is the new thing on Ministers Talking Shit. Once it gets past the bottom of the hour, we're in overtime, and we're allowed to spend a little bit of time in overtime if we want, just so we're off the air before our next program. So let's I want to create a prescription. I want to create a vision, something like what can we look towards in relation to reparations and a healing of the racial injustices that have been perpetuated across the last 400 years in America.
Wow.
Take a minute, you know.
I'll do it. You know, we've all seen all the advertisements for EA Sports, right? For the different football games. And so I think we need to create a EA Sports, and that EA stands for education and activation. And begin to educate, which is what needs to be done to let people know that, okay, these are the things that happen. And I applaud Harvard for being a little transparent on this, for saying, hey, somebody had a conscience and said we gotta educate the people about what we did, and then we got to take some action or some activation to begin to make some amends. Now, how do you calculate that value from over 300, 400 years ago? I mean, that's some of the stuff happened in the 1700s. So we got 400 years there we're trying to deal with, but that's what we need to do, and we need to have the conversations and come up with action plans. No matter, I mean, we can't skimp on those actions though. We have to understand, and we can't do tokenism. We have to make a real effort to turn this thing around.
Yeah. Yes. It feels what's flooding into my head, right, is, folks, it might also be a time for you to do a forensic accounting of your own finances and take a look at where, and if you're in a 401c3 or so, whatever those are,
401k.
K, thank you. I say 501c3 so many times in a day I get lost. But take a look. Are the companies that you invest in taking actions? Are they taking a step? That can be enough. And if not, consider divesting yourselves of those companies and put your money, put your energy, put your voice to the companies that are making a difference. So I want to keep an eye on Twitter. Not because I want to go buy it, not because I want to financially support it, but I do want to watch our changes being made. I'm going to be watching Harvard more as well. Are they living up to this? It's one of the other stories we're not talking about is this celebrity trial that's going on. But it came out this week that Amber Heard was agreed to make a major donation from the divorce with Johnny Depp. And they look at the finances, and she hasn't done a third of what she's committed to doing as far as financial contribution that she committed to. And so we hear people say they're going to do good, but we got to stay with it, and we got to follow it, and we got to make sure that it actually does happen. I'm going to trust that Harvard's really going to do what Harvard says it's going to do, and it's going to put $100 million into reparations, repairing the relationship it has with humanity, with the human race.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the ways we can create a world that works for all.
Yep. And like the advertisement go, EA Sports, get in the game. You got to get in this game if you want to educate and activate and have a say and a part to play in working with the scales of justice, balancing things out.
Exactly, folks. We normally do a final thought on this program, but I think Z just hit it for us. Get in the game. Educate and activate. And if that education starts with you and you need to get educated, reach out. Let us know. ministertalk@ntmedia.org. We could put some great resources in your hands. I do believe New Thought Media Network's going to be offering a version of this 12-step program later in the year. And get involved. Educate and activate. Cool. Z, anything we're forgetting before we let these folks get back into their morning?
No, just have a lovely weekend, and as they say, tighten up on your backstroke, and let's get moving.
Tighten up on your backstroke. All right, folks, we are going to get out of here. Thanks for being with us. Stay tuned here on the New Thought Media Network. It's a Friday, so we got all kinds of great stuff happening. Sekou Writes and Be Your Own Hero is up in just about 7 or 8 minutes. 8:15, it's the morning prayer. 8:30, it's Rev Melissa with the morning sip. And today being Friday, we've got new shows coming on Friday, but not until the middle of June. So watch for 2 new shows coming on Fridays in the middle of June. However, today at 1 o'clock, it's Just One You with Reverend Barbara out of Toronto. Later this evening, the good news at 5 o'clock, and our fireside chat at 6 p.m. all times Mountain here on the New Thought Media Network. Thanks for being with us. We're going to get out of here for now. Until next time, we wish you peace and richest blessings.
One love.
Oh, and I hit the wrong button. I'm supposed to hit this button.
And thanks for listening to this week's episode of Ministers Talking. We'll be back again next week with more commentary on current affairs, world events, and any other our ministers want to talk about. And if you found value here, please share our with your friends. Until next time, peace and blessings.